Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. The Fleming Eric, the riddle has finally been answered, but it's not good. Edward Hedi Jr. was born Eric Fleming on 4th of July 1925, Santa Paula, California. The formative years of Fleming were not at all simple. Born amid a turbulent and violent household, he went through terrifying encounters that would leave a lasting wounds, both mental and physical. According to reports, the father was severely abusive, and young Edward, who is only 8 years old, tried to leave his unpleasant home life. By fleeing, he ultimately found himself on the Los Angeles streets, residing as a homeless and surviving on his own in the underside of the city. He completed whatever tasks he could. He found ways to live, such as shining shoes and working in the neighborhood marketplaces. His struggles persisted into teenage years, sending him down a path of route. He joined a gang activity and ultimately discovered himself in violation of the law. A gun-related incident led to significant facial injuries that needed to be several reconstructive procedures. Later, Fleming described this as a pivotal moment of his life. Following having surgery to rebuild his face, once experiencing a failing procedure that briefly left him deformed, he started to reconsider the course his life was taking. This traumatic time sparked a personal transformation, finally providing him with the motivation to seek a fresh, more optimistic route. In search of self-control and a feeling of Fleming joined the US Navy for this reason. Throughout World War II, he was sent to differentiation, becoming a petty officer and being sent to the southern region Pacific. His Navy service instilled in him the virtues of fortitude, integrity, and friendship, qualities that would subsequently show through in his most well-known roles. Following an honorable discharge, he came back to the US carrying a wish to better himself in both intellectually and creatively. Working at first as a worker at Fleming's Paramount Studios, rugged appearances and subdued intensity were captured the casting agent's attention. He started attending acting classes and eventually learning under reputable instructors who helped him refine his craft. Fleming began to land little roles in television and movies during the 1950s, which included roles in Bonanza, Studio One, and The Silent Service. Although these sections were simple, and they started to lay the groundwork for what would eventually an innovative position. The work of Eric Fleming's career peaked with his position as Gil Favor from the television show on CBS Rawhide, broadcasting between 1959 and 1965. As the tenacious, moral path boss, Fleming added depth, gravity, and silent command of the screen. He swiftly became well known and respected for his sincerity, dominating presence as well as the emotional intricacy he contributed to the position. Under Fleming's Rawhide's steady hand made him one of the most popular Western television shows of its time. The program not only caught the old West frontier spirit, but also addressed ethical and societal conundrums, things the audience found compelling. Fleming's performance established the mood for the whole series and was instrumental in starting a young Clint's career. The actor who played the brazen young Rowdy Yates is a cowboy. Their screen chemistry, in harmony with Fleming's authority and the impulsiveness of Eastwood, created for a dynamic visual experience. Throughout the summer break of 1965 saw a significant upheaval behind scenes from the enduring CBS Rawhide is a Western television series. In a broad choice intended to update the show's format and making an effort to recover its declining audience, just installed Ben Brady, the executive producer, took prompt action that would have long-term consequences. Brady, who was now the sixth producer to assume control of during its time on television, Rawhide was charged with the difficult duty of bringing a once popular show back to life that had started to exhibit symptoms of exhaustion in ratings as well as narrative, thinking that a significant upheaval of the cast may bring fresh perspectives to the series. With vigor and focus, Brady started the termination of a number of long-standing and cherished actors, of them playing the role of the stoic and Gil Favor, the dominant trail boss, a prominent character in the series since its beginning in 1959. In addition to Fleming, a number of other regulars who had gained popularity were also unceremoniously over time. Give it up. Wooly Sheb is well known for his trail's rough charm and characterization. One of those was Scout Pete Nolan, rejected in spite of his character's enduring significance as the experienced mentor and frequently the wise voice on the drive. The actor, James Murdoch, who played the well-intentioned but often incompetent Mushy, the camp cook assistant, was also released. His personality, a source of human vulnerability and comedic relief, has gained popularity with audiences for his devoted backing of Wishbone, the Paul's portrayal of the crusty trail chef Bringar. Cabal, Robert, who had performed the quiet but trustworthy Wrangler Jesus, I was also removed from the cast. Jesus was one of the few Latino characters that appear repeatedly in a major Western television at the time, as well as his presence had provided a certain amount of cultural variety to the otherwise uniform group. At last, Rocky Shahan performed the subdued but trustworthy diva Joe Scarlett was taken out as well. Shahan's persona, albeit not frequently in the forefront of the narrative line, which had been a common sight on the trail crew and added to the overall feel of the show, of continuity as well as friendship. Of all these rejections, the most startling was perhaps that of the real Eric Fleming. As the de facto head of the cattle drives on the show and its focal point of drama, Fleming's portrayal of Gil Favor has played a crucial role in the early success of the series. His severe but leadership with values, frequently punctuated during times of introspection and moral judgment, had a foundation Rawhide in a way that makes sense to viewers answered. Fleming was more than just a powerful player, but also a co-creator of the emotional impact of the show. His unexpected fans were taken aback by the ouster and both industry watchers. Later on, Fleming provided an interview with TV Guide.ri and rather rebellious interpretation of his dismissal, alleging that I was sacked by CBS because I was getting paid $1 million a year. However, the real number was nearer $220,000. A year is a remarkable wage for an actor on television at the time. The tensions were emphasized in the statement between creative and network economics guidance. Additionally, it implied a level of resentment with the choice, maybe made worse by the reality that he'd been a steady and noticeable presence on the 7 seasons of the show. Following after Fleming left, the producers made the contentious choice to advance. Then, Clint Eastwood portrayed the younger diva Rowdy Yates, who is more impetuous, to trail boss is the role. This change in character dynamics was a significant pivotal moment in the series' plot, but according to reports, Eastwood himself was feeling conflicted about the change. In interviews, he would subsequently acknowledge that it felt uncomfortable playing the lead, especially in such turbulent conditions, and with the sudden departure of his co-star and friend Fleming. Eastwood understood that a portion of the compelling argument for Rawhide had been the mentor-protege connection between both Yates and Favor, but without Fleming's constant presence, that crucial dramatic, the stress was released. However, Eastwood assumed the position with professionalism and oversaw the trail crew via an abbreviated 8th season comprising only 13 episodes. In spite of their initiatives to breathe new vitality into the show, the modifications did not result in the intended outcomes. Rawhide went on to suffer from the ratings, and CBS, no more assured about the show's long-term viability, decided to end the show by the conclusion of 1965. The last blow was delivered by CBS chief William S. Paley, the decision-maker to end the series even though prior to the final episodes of the season had already broadcast. An additional element helping to bring the show to an end, Eastwood claimed that it was a strategic error in judgment on the part of the network. According to him, Rawhide had become CBS's sole, continuously prosperous show that airs on Friday evenings, a time slot that has a bad reputation for low viewership. Enan attempt to profit from the show's CBS executives shifted in relative strength. Tuesday nights. Regretfully, this put Rawhide in direct rivalry with Combat on ABC, a grim drama about World War II, starring Rick Vick and Jason Tomorrow. The program focused on American soldiers in a platoon engaged in combat. The Western Front drew a comparable demographic, attracting primarily male viewers to tales of initiative, leadership, and hardship. This scheduling choice was made successfully. Divided. the audience and eventually accelerated Rawhide's downfall. Following overcoming a number of obstacles in their profession, Eric Fleming showed fortitude and adaptability by grabbing rebounds with a prominent auxiliary role in the 1966 The Glass Bottom, a romantic spy comedy boat, a movie that had a lively tribute for Doris, America's beloved day. During the movie, Fleming played a stylish, debonair spy caught up in a flurry of humorous miscommunications and espionage pranks during the Cold War. His elegant appearance and keen performance was notable among a group of seasoned comedians, contributing a level of mystery and charm that counterbalanced the day's vivacious personality and the movie's floorball power. Not the star, however, the performance by Fleming provided a preview into his repertoire outside of the Western genre that had traditionally characterized his public picture. At the same time, Fleming made a noteworthy comeback to television with a guest prominent roles in 3 episodes of Bonanza on NBC, the most well-liked and popular television shows of the mid-1960s. With the Nevada desert in the background, Border, Bonanza adhered to Ben is the patriarch of the Cartwright family, along with his 3 boys, which include the little Joe, impulsive and adored, played by Michael Landon. The visitor of Fleming appearances not only brought him back together with some of the stories from the West customs he was proficient in on Rawhide. However, they also demonstrated his capacity to inhabit intricate and frequently moral characters that are unclear in a family-friendly structure. He was supervised by William Whitney, a notable performer-filmmaker renowned for his quick-paced, dynamic visual aesthetic that provided and heightened the intensity of Fleming's performances. Among Fleming's best, there were strong appearances in the episode Peace Officer, the 18th installment of the 7th season of Bonanza. In it, he provided a spooky and complex depiction of a vicious police officer named Wes Dunn, whose fixation with fairness and control turns into a warning against the misuse of authority. Dunn's shift toward authoritarianism, the portrayal of brutality, is so subtly Fleming's performance was a threat, praised by both fans and reviewers for its intricacy of the mind. His capacity to humanize the most vicious characters highlighted his complexity as an actor's openness to exploring gloomy emotional terrain. Acknowledging Fleming's captivating appearance on TV and excellent rapport with the usual cast, the founder and executive producer of Bonanza David Dautor asked him to return to the next season to adopt an even more ambitious position. Fleming this time played the role of Haber Clausen, a pious and righteous Mormon cattleman in The Pursued, is a 2-part episode. The plot was revolutionary for its time, as it explored the depths of the delicate and little discussed topic of American religious persecution, West. The story traced Clausen's and his family as they made an effort to survive calmly in accordance with their faith alone, to confront mistrust, discrimination, and eventually hostile violence from nearby colonists. Fleming gave the character a calm decency, empathy, and fortitude, painting a man's portrait whose adversity puts beliefs to the test, yet stay unfazed. For many years, the terrible and Eric Fleming, an actor, died inexplicably, has plagued aficionados of vintage television and both entertainment historians. The best renowned for his striking depiction of Gil Favor, the boss of the popular Western series. Fleming was at the height of Rawhide's notoriety in the early 1960s. However, in 1966, while a television show was being filmed set in a secluded region of Peru, his life was interrupted in a terrible and incomprehensible manner. Now, following years of rumors, contradictory information, and a cloak of quiet enclosing the conditions, the whole truth about his death has at last surfaced, and it's much more eerie than most fans realize, never thought of. Eric Fleming had made the leap to Peru's Halaga River to shoot High, the 2-part television film Jungle ABC pilot that was designed to extend his career into more daring and jobs that are exotic. On the 28th of September, 1966, while using a paddle to film a scene tragic events with his co-star Nico Menardosheet. At the time, reports were ambiguous and perplexing. Fleming was said to have fell during a rehearsal into the river, created an impression, and was carried away by the swiftly flowing current. In spite of despite a search, his corpse was not recuperated for a few days. Additionally, when it was, his remains condition improved, difficult queries. For many years, it was widely believed that he drowned, a straightforward, albeit tragic, mishap in a treacherous place. However, behind the scenes, a lot of implicated in the suspected production. The story was not over yet. Whispers stalked about insufficient safety measures, inadequate preparation, and even disputes within the crew. The suspicion was heightened by the Peruvian officials' lack of comprehensive inquiry, the limited press attention, as well as the apparent intention the subject should be put to rest immediately. Thank you now to production memos that were recently discovered, interviews with crew members who are still alive, as well as access to diplomatic correspondence between the US Embassy with authorities from Peru, a more thorough, unsettling image of Fleming's. The last few hours have surfaced. Initially, it's currently verified that the producers had not obtained suitable safety gear despite being cautioned. The canoe scenes regarding the river's hazards by residents. Menados and Fleming were not wearing life jackets while filming, and that the used canoe was judged to be unsteady and unsuitable for the power of the present. Additionally, Fleming had allegedly voiced worries regarding the scene a few days prior to his passing. He informed a cast member that he didn't feel, was uncertain about the river's safety, unpredictable. However, because of the budget limitations and the need to remain on schedule, the production continued carelessly. Even worse, a collection of images captured shortly before the incident indicates that the location was not being appropriately watched over by the stunt director and coordinator, and the director demanded, on performing several takes to obtain an ideal angle at which the canoe navigates therapids. Fleming was worn out, apparently sick and dehydrated from the wild surroundings, a hazardous situation for someone to be in such physical demanding conditions. When the boat flipped over, Menados managed to reach land by swimming. Conversely, Fleming was dragged below the rapids, as stated by secret cables that the United States sent Fleming's body in the Lima consulate, when found a few days later, displayed indications of severe trauma, including injuries to the head incompatible with drowning on its own. It is now thought that he was hit by submerged boulders having immense power, resulting in a terrible demise that was both safeguards that were both immediate and preventable being captured. Possibly the most startling revelation is the speed at which efforts were designed to hide the more unsettling aspects of the catastrophe. ABC, as well as the High Jungle's creators, pushed to account of an unintentional drowning, minimizing any implication of responsibility or carelessness. They collaborated closely with local authorities to keep specifics out of the media and hurried to wrap up the event as a natural catastrophe. ABC was in charge of the project internally, silently put the video on hold and stayed away from any public analysis of what transpired incorrect. The crew members were demoralized from addressing the press. Menados, severely traumatized, provided only ambiguous declarations in the ensuing years, enhancing the mystery even more, and misunderstanding over Fleming's demise. October the 1st, 3 days. Following the accident, his remains were eventually located downstream. Shockwaves were sent by the news, via the entertainment sector, and shattered his loved ones. Fleming was just 41 years old when Hedi Jr. He was engaged at the time to one of the women he intended to get married. His unexpected death left her and countless others in profound sorrow, and his fans were deeply saddened by his passing, and co-workers as well. After Fleming's death, High Jungle's production was ended suddenly. Without its guidanceman, and in observance of the tragedy, MGM made the decision not to finish or release the episode. The project is still lost, mostly recognized, for its connection to Fleming's premature demise instead of for its aspirations for creativity. The event marked a somber and sudden conclusion to the career of a performer who had conquered severe hardship in his early years, including a challenging upbringing and serious physical harm in order to Hollywood's success. The work of Eric Fleming's death was a loss to more than just the amusement industry, but also a painful reminder of the dangers that actors frequently face in the sake of narrative, particularly during a time when online videography was lacking the safety regulations of today. The recently undiscovered information reveals not only a terrible mishap, but a somber story of expert supervision corporate apathy, as well as a structural inability to shield a well-liked actor from an clearly avoidable fate. However, fans still have pleasant memories of him as the stoic, noble Gil Favor, this more thorough examination. His last moments leave a gloomy legacy over his legacy. The long-buried mystery, silence and half-truths are no resolved. However, its resolution provides minimal ease. Rather, it acts as a warning about the hidden expenses regarding celebrity and the actual risks that frequently lurk behind the lens.